Welcome to another edition of the Moose Moose. That's right, it's the Moose Moose. And it's been a while since we've been able to call it that, but I think if we're ever going to call it, this would be the perfect time. And who are we to call anything a Moose Moose? Well, I am Jamie Williams, also known as the Vet, which is a vet starts with a V, and in the VBC that means something. And here's what the B means. It's a hot tag to Brandon through the power of the internet. Bam.
Hot, man. Hot, pal.
B
What
also
is
starts
up?
with Bam also starts with a B. So, it works out. Brandon, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. That was a fun impact this week. How's everybody doing? Happy Monday. We're here. We're hanging. We're chilling. All the Bearcats in the house. Whoop whoop. How y'all doing?
That's right. He's that everyone he's referring to. That starts with an E, but we can also start him with a C because we got a live chat going. We got a chat going, and we got people that come and hang out with us live as we do this show. So if you're on audio only and you'd be like, man, this just sounds like they're having a great time over there, even though they are talking about TNA, which means they shouldn't necessarily be having a great time. Maybe I want to get involved with that. Well, every 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, you can join in with us and be one of the C's. And you C's over here in the chat, there's a literal C in the chat. Who do we have with us right now as we're opening the doors and people are filing in?
Let's see who we got with us tonight. We got Liz. We got Lab Rat who's celebrating a birthday. Happy birthday to you, pal.
Right.
We got Gam hanging with us. And so we got Canada Spaceman. Whoop whoop. Good to see y'all. How y'all doing?
That's right. Yes, and Canada Spaceman needs to be told what to think, right? He says, if I found TNA enjoyable, I must be crazy. Yes, we know that, unfortunately, even a man that's from Canada or even the space above Canada orbiting, somehow not the biggest fan of Moose. I don't understand. I thought it was legally required. But we're working and we've been chipping away at Canada Spaceman trying to get him to understand for years now, and he's here with us, so we must be doing something right, even if we haven't broken through on the Moose front. But yes, so this is the Moose Moose, and you'll all understand why as we go on through the episode. But that's what we call a tease, or perhaps a hook, or a thread, or something, a breadcrumb, to get you to continue to listen through to the end of the show. What are we talking about? Why is it the Moose Moose again? Perhaps I didn't. Perhaps you're sitting at home saying, I didn't care to watch TNA, so I'm just gonna be oblivious. Who knows? Yeah. Oh man, he's asking for a timeout. Is what he's asking for. Canada Spaceman with a comment like that. Moose is not bad, but he's still a jabroni. But yeah. But before we get to that, what we like to do, we like to chit chat about a few things. Here in the United States of America, nothing of significance happened since the last time we spoke here on the Moose Moose. So we probably have. I couldn't think of any earth-shattering events or newsworthy anything that happened. Right? Probably nothing. Right?
I mean, there was one really big, earth-shaking, historic thing that did happen. But we'll get to
And
that
that was
later in
on
the
Impact,
show.
right? That was on the Impact episode from Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We'll get to that later in the show.
Yeah. All right. So if you just wanna hang again, and talk about that, not really a lot in pro wrestling, but then again, kind of. And it almost like, well, before I bring anything up, I'll flip it over to you, Brandon. Did you see anything this week that made you go, man, we need to talk about that on the Impact Attack?
I must have missed something because I might be out of the loop. So I don't know what you could be referring to.
Okay. Well, it also ties into our question of the week. Which if you saw the question, then you may have an idea. But so we've already chit chatted and discussed about the WWE ID program. I think we just a little bit here and there since they've announced it. But now, our question of the week ties directly into that because the great Chris Winland is asking us, about our thoughts on it. So that's why, um, and probably the reason he's asking is probably the same reason that I would say it's like maybe something we could talk about because I've been seeing more prospects obviously are getting
Yeah,
right, and then we've also more people are trying to uh I don't know, guess suss out what does this really mean? Like what is this program really? What does it mean for the wrestlers themselves? What is WWE, do they have some sort of ulterior motives, or is this, is this something that people should be wary of, like in terms of, you know, the future of the wrestling industry going forward, like those kind of things. Like people are trying to figure out what it means. They want to know, what does it really mean to be a WWID prospect? And I would have to I would have to say that I still am not quite sure what it all means. I don't know what that goes from, like the moment that you're designated, and then what how does your life change after that from what you've been doing for however long. I'm not quite sure what that entails. And even reading certain things or people's speculation, um I mean, I can relate it to what I would hope the program could mean. But I still don't really have all the details. So I'll just read the question out as he wrote it, and then I'll throw it to you and see what you think first. Uh, so he says, Chris Winland says, could you both elaborate a bit more than you may already have on the WWID program, the plus and minus sides? How will it differ or not from the NIL program? Might we see more of the local jobbers and squash matches on TV than we have lately? So, with that last part, I'm not sure if he's referring to the prospects as jobbers. Like, I don't know if he means like, oh, you're a jobber and we signed you to our program, so we'll bring you in to do a job. Like, perhaps that's what he's asking. I'm not necessarily sure, um, but that's if that is the plan. That's not necessarily the best use of this program, I don't think. You get those guys to come in, they applied to you as an extra, and you pay them, like, whatever they pay them now. I don't know. I got paid $250, but that was back in like 15 years ago. So like they may have bumped it up a little bit, you know. But basically, yeah, they give you the old proverbial hot dog and a handshake, and like, here you go, kid. And then maybe if you talk to the right people or impress somebody earlier in the day, like rolling around in the ring or something, and maybe they want to keep tabs on you, you know, then or they might select you, be like, man, this kid, you know, it would be a thing where you go in and apply as an extra, and on the website, and then if you have, if they contact you, they'll book you when they get to the area as a local, right? They'll be like, oh yeah, this kid emailed us, so we'll say, hey, come on in or whatever, and then you show up. You probably talk to John Cohn or somebody, and then you sit around in catering and stuff, and then when they, have the spot where security gets thrown around by Bronson Reed or whatever the case may be, um, then you do that. If they have specific things that they want the extras for, you get they'll round you up and do that, and then sometimes there's during the early portion of the day you may be around the ring and you may be working out, perhaps, like just trying to work with some people or whatever. And then if in the past, if people had been like impressive, particularly impressive in what they did, maybe some of the wrestlers that were milling around ringside might be like, oh, like maybe this guy, maybe those guys are scheduled for a squash match or something, and they know that, but they just don't know who. And maybe they just want to look and see, like, oh, I like to work with that guy because he looks like he's not going to kill me. So then stuff like that can happen. I don't particularly know if I'm going to be looking at people that are essentially looking like they're being sponsored by WWE, yet not like locked down by them with a developmental contract or something, but just like sponsored. I don't know if you need to do that if you're just going to bring them in to do what the extras already do, but maybe who can say what's really what they're really thinking. But as far as that goes, I don't know. But as far as the rest of the question goes, as I was rambling and filibustering and explaining and prefacing and all this other stuff. So what do you think, Brandon, would be like the plus and the minus, or if it's different from the NIL program as far as like, what they're doing here?
One thing that I first came to mind of like a big positive for the boys is like, okay, if it's publicly announced that WWE has their eye on you, that kind of increases your booking rate. Now you start charging more, and more people are going to start wanting to book you on their shows. That also gets you more exposure because people are going to be recording your matches and putting them online, which in a way can allow WWE officials to get more of a look at you without actually having to be there in person to watch.
Exactly.
And another positive too is it could also help filter out, okay, is this somebody we want to, keep as a prospect and move further, or like, okay, we need to cut this one loose, or wait till they develop a little bit more on their own and then take a second look.
Yeah, that's a good pro. A couple good pros. Can you think of any cons that there might be? I mean, I don't think it's going to be a con for any of the kids that get these deals, but
No.
but what do you think? What could even potentially be a downside for it?
I could see like a lot of the politics and the backstabbing becoming a lot more cutthroat, unless there's some sort of something at the lower levels of you have independent promotions, like just smaller ones working deals like with these prospect promotions, like the ones that are part of the ID deal. Like, okay, like what we could, let's look at your guys, send us your stuff and say, okay, who can we use to on our shows.
Mm-hmm. And you guys also in the chat, if you think of anything that you think would be a con or a pro, please share your thoughts. That's what you're here for. Um, but yeah, the con side of things, I think if anything now, what you just described as a potential con could even turn out to be another pro if you look at it, because if these people are like earmarked by the WWE, and you were to do something that were to somehow like interfere with their investments, you could end up blacklisted, like as in like, if you try to if you try to and it's probably going to happen, because I don't think people don't. I just assumed, let's put it this way, when I got physically actually involved in wrestling and not just like a fan watching, but when I'm actually now in it, I just assumed that people would think the same way I thought, or I thought I would think the same way as everyone. I thought we would be more like-minded. I thought people would use more common sense. I thought we would be fans of the same things growing up. I thought we had to be similar to be crazy enough to do this kind of a thing. So we would probably have to be more alike than we're different. I found that to not be the case. I found people to be just as dumb, just as oblivious as everyone else out there in civilian life, let's say. The only difference is you have to get in the ring with them. So I can't give anybody the credit that they'd be smart enough to realize this, but like if you tamper with one of these prospects, like if you take liberties with them or if you try to like undercut them, if you do those things, you like there goes your chance of ever getting a WWE ID designation, right? Like so now people are probably going to be more careful because now going from developmental is like, okay, here are the people that WWE assigned to contracts under one roof. Now every independent wrestler is a potential candidate for WWE, which has never been like that before. People may have, you know, pie in the sky dreamed that it was like that before, but now it actually is. So am I going to fuck up my chance just because I'm jealous of this guy that got one before me? Or am I going to work hard to try to, you know, maybe I'm going to politic to this guy.
It's like
Maybe
it's
he's
on.
going to have the best match of his life with me because I want him to put in a word for me with somebody one day. Maybe this is a way to actually filter out some of the things that have plagued wrestling since the dawn of wrestling. It's not going to do it, but it's certainly more likely to happen now than less likely, right?
It basically kind of creates its own self-regulating system.
Right. And that's how it all should have been, right? I mean, it's so that is that's what I like about it. There's other things I like. I mean, I believe that Triple H is a wrestling fan. And now that he is in a position where he's basically the Vince McMahon of the wrestling business, but now we have a wrestling fan there. So of course he's going to want to have the best that he possibly can, but now he doesn't need to do all the things because I don't think he has any interest in crushing everything under his boot anymore. He did what he did, and he was a dick and an asshole and whatever to protect his spot when he was active. But now that he doesn't need to protect his spot, he can look towards the health and future of the wrestling business. And if he chooses to do that and try to make it better, because that's what he wants to see. He's still a fan and he still wants to see wrestling, right? He has to sit at Gorilla and watch it, but he doesn't want to watch bad wrestlers do bad wrestling. So he's going to try to get the best possible people out there to do it and to move the business forward and to make the business more money so they can be more successful and do more things and all of that. I think he sees that. I think he has that vision, and he doesn't have necessarily the pettiness or the chip on his shoulder. Why should he be petty or have a chip on his shoulder? He got everything he ever wanted. So now he can just look at trying to improve. That's maybe an idealistic look at it, but I've never seen Triple H do anything that would suggest to the contrary. You know, like since he's been out of active full-time wrestling. Let's put it that way. And people seem to really enjoy their relationships with him. And we've seen him repair many bridges, like not just repair a bridge, but like the bridge was fucking burned to ash and he just built a new bridge with people that specifically he had heat with or whatever. Do we see Scott Steiner sitting in Bad Blood, or you know, we bring CM Punk back into the business and he's a top guy now and they're sitting around, you know, hanging out with Larry the dog in a fucking baby carriage while Bianca Belair walks by.
Let's go back. Let's go back a decade. Bruno Sammartino, Ultimate Warrior.
Right. Yeah, I don't think Triple H had he with Bruno, but Vince did, and Triple H was the one that was like, this is important. So he's showing that he's much more concerned with uh the history, the preservation of history of wrestling and the future of wrestling than over petty grudges with himself, which not many pro wrestlers could say that. So I'm proud of Triple H in that way. And in hindsight, it looks like he did a lot of the selfish things that he did just so that he could secure this spot. Like, okay, whatever it takes to be the guy in the entire business. And now that I am, I don't have to worry about it anymore. So I just try to help the business now and do all the things I didn't do when I was trying to get here. And I think this ID program is a great example of that. Whether this was his idea, I'm certain that he supports it 100%, because he's always had people scouting and looking. That's what NXT was for. And the reality is, everybody that you might want as a potential future WWE talent, they can't fit under one roof. There's only so many rings, so much time, so many trainers, so many bookings. Like, that's why he lets NXT wrestlers go and work, Japan, TNA. They're getting reps that they can't get because there's just not enough time. And now this is even further extension of it, of like, well, we can't sign you all because there's not enough room here at the PC for all of you, but maybe if we see you early enough, we can develop you. And if you prove yourself to be a can't miss, then yeah, now we can sign you because we're going to be getting rid of some people too. Think about one of the things that I saw here. Now, this is from the Wrestling Observer. So, your thoughts on Dave notwithstanding, he's got a good, he's got a pretty decent, grasp on these type of things, but this is what he says. So take it however you want it, season it with whatever grains of salt that you like. But he says, the idea is that they have potential. They'll be signed to deals that were described as similar to the NIL deals that they signed college athletes to. It's not enough money to live on, but it's money, and it's a deal that basically means there's a relationship and opens the door. So,
right. And again, the indie worker in me, like here's where my mind's going. Okay, that's a foundation where I can start building and growing off of that, and potentially take that to the WWE.
Mm-hmm. So this part was not quoted. What I just read was quoted. So he wrote that but in the rest of this paragraph here, it's basically saying something like, I don't know if they got it from Dave's article or if they're, sort of yes-anding him from previously released information, but they're saying that the wrestlers that are WWID will be encouraged to take independent dates from affiliated promotions. And so we've talked about the schools that are kind of the first schools to be under these, which is like Nightmare Factory, Reality of Wrestling, the ones, the Rikishi one, others. So those usually have a promotion attached to them, right? So like we know Reality of Wrestling, they run their own promotion, but it's a school, right? So it's like, okay. And the wrestlers would be encouraged to take independent dates from affiliated promotions and train at affiliated schools, and can even be offered contracts from other companies. So what they're saying is they're encouraging it that you train at these schools. They're not saying you're mandated, but I mean, they kind of, you would kind of expect that. And why wouldn't you want to? Obviously, if you go work at some, Roscoe's Wrestling and Waffles or something somewhere, and that just probably means like, yeah, you could get hurt working here with these scrubs, but also they're not going to look at you because they don't have any eyes over there, and they're not going to put any. So they're saying it's basically easier to see you if you work here. Um, and then as far as like the contracts or the companies, so like let's say you had a great match and Billy Corgan got wind of you or something and wanted to bring you into NWA. So NWA could offer, they could find out if NWA offers so and so a contract, and then it says here the WWE has the right of first refusal and can sign the talent instead and bring them to the PC. So that's one of those things where it's like, perhaps, let's say, let's say some guy or gal is like, under this program, and let's say they get a job. MLW, Court Bauer wants to sign him to one of those like ironclad infinity contracts or something, and WWE's like, okay, go ahead and sign it. And then they go work at MLW, and then maybe they just get the experience of MLW, and then after 2, 3, however many years of that, then WWE could be like, okay, now you're just what we want. Like you were just you were an unfinished prospect before, but now you polished up. Yeah, you got the little bit of seasoning. Now you're ready. Now we'll sign you because now you're just ready for just developmental and not necessarily, I mean, they bring ever since NXT's existed, they've brought in people that were like, not to be developed. Like, 10 years ago, it was like, okay, how many 40-year-olds from TNA are you going to sign here? Bringing in Eric Young and Samoa Joe and like, so, like, yeah, we're not developing Samoa Joe. Okay. We're bringing Samoa Joe as a star power for our promotion to also work with the guys that are young talent that need to work with experienced wrestlers like Samoa Joe. And we know that because Samoa Joe is fat, that Vince is not interested right now. So it's like, okay, well, he could go right to Raw or SmackDown or whatever, but Vince isn't going to get it. So we'll bring him to NXT. Let that open, it's like getting the foot in the door. It works as we have star power for NXT. We have experience on hand as player coach for all of our young people that don't have the experience that Samoa Joe has. And then if Samoa Joe is so impressive, then Vince will be forced to use him. And look what happened. I mean, Samoa Joe could have definitely had a better run in WWE, but he did end up working with Brock, which not everybody gets to do. So,
and Brock sold for him.
Right. So, I mean, things like that, you wouldn't call those guys like, yeah, you don't call Eric Young, like, oh, we developmental for Eric Young. No, nuh-uh. But so now you're a WWID. Now you're out there doing what you do, but you just know that certain people are looking out for you, and you get a little bit of extra money, just so you could say, hey, I don't have to worry about making a choice between my car and my rent payment this month. I can pay both, things like that would be good. So I don't know. That's, to me, I don't really see the downside, but it's kind of something that should have always been happening, and it's sort of an extension of what has been happening. It's like an extension of NXT even further, and it can end up benefiting everyone in unexpected ways Um, I'll give you an example. Did you have anything else to add on any of these points? I think we covered pretty much. Uh, they say how will it differ? Chris said how will it differ or not from the NIL program? Well, it'll differ because these are NIL is looking for any athlete that's like a legit athlete. ID is looking for independent wrestlers. So it's like you're casting a wide net to try to get everybody that you possibly can. You're talking about people that have never been wrestling fans or wrestled that are just such good athletes that they would make a good wrestler, and a lot of those don't work out, but some do. And then you have guys and gals that are independent wrestlers and they have experience, but not that much. But they got something. So we want to see if you got more. And how many of those independent wrestlers don't work out? A lot of those don't work out too, but that's the whole point. You got to try. You never know. You never know what's going to get caught in the net when you throw it out there. So if you don't want what you catch in the net, you throw it back. But, you know, that's it. Um, but yeah, did you have anything else to add on top of any of that stuff?
It just kind of feels like they're kind of establishing a almost like a MLB farm system, right? You have the A leagues, which is the schools that are part of the ID program, double A, which would be like TNA, and then triple A, which would be NXT.
Maybe so. Well, that's kind of what Canada Spaceman was asking. Like, what about the talk in Hameen Media Chats podcast the past year that TNA will become the new developmental ground for WWE and NXT will be elevated?
That's kind of what I see happening. I see that being as like a tier in this kind of revamped program.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, why should you? It's just TNA is TNA, and you could send people to work there, and we can start like a territory system. Again, Triple H is a wrestling fan, a wrestling historian. He grew up on territories. He knows what those are like. I bet a fantasy booking while Tony Khan, bless his heart, I have no ill will towards Tony Khan. He's doing his best, but while his fandom included like the internet where people would just get online and do e-federation booking and stuff like that, and that's those group of fans' era, and they did that. But at the same time, the generation before that didn't have e-feds, so Triple H couldn't get online and go in chat rooms and book fantasy booking stuff. So he's saw things from a different perspective, and now if he wants to do his fantasy, Triple H's fantasy would be to revive the territories that he grew up with, and he just might do it.
That's what this is looking like.
Yeah, why do I need to own a part of TNA? Why do I need to do that? Why can't I just shake their hand and exchange some talent? Right?
That seems like a way easier and way cheaper exchange.
Yeah, and then if TNA fucks something up, because that's Anthem Entertainment, it's not TNA. They're like owned. Like you can't really do that, but what you can do is the handshake deal. So that's pro wrestling. That's old school pro wrestling. The handshake deal. I'll send you this guy, you send me this guy. And then they'll do a program and then we'll send them back. The only difference is in the territory days, you couldn't see it. You had to be local TV if you even had TV. So like you wouldn't see the guy get used. Now you could follow people around and you could see, oh man, and we'll talk about some of that later, but you could see like, oh damn, they jobbed him out or whatever. You could see this happening now, but you wouldn't see that in the old days, right? So everybody that went to a new territory was fresh no matter what they were doing in the other one. And it depended on how the booker would use them. I do like what Labrat said there. That's pretty much a perfect encapsulation. TK is just a player and Triple H is the game. He is. Yeah, that's exactly right. So as far as Liz saying NXT will end up being just another show, I saw an article that Triple H wants to do away with the whole brand split stuff. I mean, maybe, but is that brand split just as far as like rosters, or I mean, I don't know. Then if you do that, then you don't get to enjoy the yearly draft anymore. Ooh, yearly draft. Um, so I mean that will be that remains to be seen. But but yeah, just as one final thing, like as an example, and I was talking about this on the wreckage, um, where I look at I will follow certain people, social media. Um, I will see like people will post the ID prospects, right? It's like their little bio picture, the official picture for the website. And so one day I go through, I see this guy Cappuccino Jones, and I'm like, who the fuck is Cappuccino Jones? Like I look at this name, or I heard about it before I saw him, and then I saw the picture. I'm like, Cappuccino Jones, that's okay. So I look at I go and I look at the picture, the pose, and I'm like, well, I don't know who this fucking guy is, but he's my favorite wrestler now. So I can already see that they're scouting pretty much the right people. I do a Google image search, and I'm like, yep, mm-hmm, yep. But yeah, right after that, I talk about Cappuccino Jones. I talk about how over he is. Even though I've never seen him take one, I haven't seen him in motion in a wrestling ring. I've never seen him take one step. I've never heard him cut a promo. I just look at his picture and I'm like, yeah, I would sign this kid. The name alone, just it's perfect, right? And but he also happens to be a very handsome young man, in shape.
If you look at where he's from, the name makes sense too.
Yeah, want to tell him where he's from?
I forgot what the name of it was, but I know it was like
Coffeeville, Kansas.
Coffeeville, Kansas. Yep. So perfect name.
Yep. And he can go even further with that gimmick as far as like, he's already got the pose, but I'm just looking at it. So like, anyways, but come to find out, coincidentally, um, he just recently had after being designated, I think it was, what's today, the 11th? I think it was the 10th. Mr. Jones had a match with somebody that's like with a personal friend of mine. So you guys can do the math on that and maybe figure out who it is. And I texted him, I said, how's the Cappuccino kid? And the response was, he's good. Good head on his shoulders too. So
nice. Very good.
So I wasn't wrong. I wasn't wrong to I wasn't wrong to just look at his picture and that's me. So now, my between 4 and 6 years plan. If you hear me say a name, it's going to be 4 or 6 years before everybody's saying it. Yeah.
You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks.
Right. Mark the date. So Cappuccino Jones looks better than the rubber band kid on NXT. That's right. To me, he does because he's just more filled out. But the guys are different enough that they can stand on their own. And hopefully, in this day and age, they won't be like the Tony Gurria, like, well, you're a tall, lean black kid. You're a tall, lean black kid. You should be a tag team. Maybe we can just have
her.
Yeah, maybe you could just have a Cappuccino Jones and a Javon Evans coexist on the same roster without being in a tag team. It'd be great. Why not? So yeah. Yes, Canada Spaceman. I mean, come on, his name is Cappuccino Jones. You're not gonna have to. But anyway, so I hope that that long and drawn out answer to Chris Whitland's question answered his question at any point. Uh, we are awarded no points, and may God have mercy on our souls. No, I'm just kidding. We that was
A
good.
simple no would have worked.
Yeah, that was good. We did it, but I think we will keep an eye on young Mr. Jones, and we will move and transition right into talking about this episode of TNA Impact, where we just may have to talk about another uh, something, someone who's hot, black, and strong. So I guess without any further ado, we're going to start with the ketchup packet. Heinz,
Of course.
classic Heinz. Shout out to Media M5 with the Hunt's ketchup. It's just not going to work for us, brother. But
Pretty sure he ain't Mel Phillips, pal.
yeah. Yeah, my feet aren't ticklish anyway. So, yes, the ketchup packet, and then we go right into our opening match, which is Tasha Steelz. And the steel is not steel, but gold, because she's dressed like an Egyptian of some kind. And then we have Alicia Edwards, and she's got a gold neck brace, not to be outdone. Yeah. And they're taking on, of course, the unstoppable team of Masha Slamovich and Jordan Grace. Yeah, I don't really foresee the heels coming away with the win on this one, but I just want to say, well, you know what? Let me start with you and just say, what did you think about this opener? Because I definitely have some thoughts, but I want to hear what you have to say so that I can either reiterate or add to.
I like the fact that Alicia's still trying to sell the neck injury, even though she's completely fine. I thought that was great.
Yes. Or is she? And we'll get to that in a second, but go ahead.
And how Jordan was taking the heat to build to Masha getting the hot tag, which I think was, what you want to do to help kind of establish your new babyface champion. Like, it was kind of really felt like a kind of continuing the whole thing of passing the torch, which kind of tells me Jordan's on her way to NXT. It's a matter of when.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now we do know they're interested. Anything else, or is that pretty much it?
That's all I can remember.
Okay. Well, yes, I agree with the neck thing. That was my notes. Like, I wrote, because the whole thing was just her like not actually getting involved in the match, but trying to get involved in the match. So the story would be, Tasha would take over and tag in, she would tag in Alicia, and then Alicia would get the tables turned on her and tag right back out. Like, okay, nope, not doing it, right? Very simple, easy story to tell. You could do this whether you're doing an injury angle or not. It could be like one of those things where like a manager is forced to be in a tag team match, or, any of those, or just even a smaller heel, or whatever the case is, the story, the reason why, but you can do this kind of a thing. It just so happens to be that, Lish had a neck brace, so she's really trying to put that over. And so yeah, so this was, I just was like, I wish that more wrestling was like this. I'm tired of watching people do their whole pre-planned move routine. I wish more, even if they pre-planned this, it didn't matter, because what they pre-planned was just like, it was like something I would have called on the fly, or was taught to call on the fly. Just very easy. You take the template of a wrestling match, and then you the parts you change are the things that are relevant. So it's like, okay, I can have a basic wrestling match where I don't feel like getting physically involved with the people that are going to kick my fucking ass. And now the only wrinkle is, okay, now I can say I have a neck injury and I can play off of that. But I mean, she did that and it was genius.
And here's something else too. When she can start taking bumps, if she can right now, you have something you're into. When she finally takes a bump, it's gonna get a pop.
Right. You're building to people seeing what they want to see. They're like, they're all, in the psychology of this match. We could spend another 15 minutes talking about this match if we really wanted to, but the psychology of this is that as the heel, you are like, you want to, even if nobody knows who you are when you walk in, um your goal is to, by the time you walk out, you want everybody in that room to hate you, and more importantly, you want the people to love the person that you're in there with. So if you get like a sort of like a bland, you know, I'm white bread, I'm gonna do my best baby face, that people are like, the idea is you want them cheering for him to kill you, because they hate you so much, not as much because they love him. And if you can somehow draw out some things that the people can get behind that white bread, boring baby face and actually make him seem special, then that's the masterclass, as Ben would call it. But yeah, it's very simple. You make them want to see what ends up happening. And what ends up happening is when Masha tags in, and eventually when she gets her hands on Alicia Edwards, she puts a sleeper on over the neck brace and she immediately taps out. And it's, yeah, you can't do a better finish than that. That's just what it is, right?
Right. Somebody's in a neck brace, she's locking the sleeper. Yeah, done. If this were real.
Right. So that's, they did that. It was perfect. And like I said, I'm like, are we sure that Alicia Edwards isn't from the Kowalski school? Because, you know, she's doing pro wrestling better than her husband. So I I don't know. Some people just, or whoever, or it was just produced by just the right agent. Who knows? But I liked it. I liked it.
Hang on a second. I gotta let my dog in. Be right back. One sec.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah. Now just for the record, I know that Alicia Edwards is not a Kowalski project. She's from Chaos Wrestling, I believe. So I don't know who would have had the. I don't know who would have actually been credited with training her, but that's where she's from, and other people that you may have heard of, like Kofi Kingston, for example. So anyway, let's see. Gia is with Savannah. Gia's with
All right,
Savannah
back. Sorry
and
about
no
that.
music underneath. Savannah is tired of waiting. Now she's gonna take. What do you think? What do you think, Brandon? Is she gonna take?
She needs to really be built back up. Like just going after Mei Ling Lee, or like that just ain't enough. Like she needs to be reintroduced and built back up into like a credible monster. They did so much damage with her the last time we saw her.
Yep. Well, if she does get a match with Lei Ying Lee, who do you think is going over?
That's actually kind of a tough call. I don't know. My guess is, May, but again, who knows?
All right. Well, let's see. Let's see if you could call who's going over in. Well, you're going to call it because you saw it, but who's going to go over between Dark Wendy versus Rosemary in a no DQ match? They're settling this feud that randomly started when Rosemary speared her after their tag team title shot failure, and no other indications that there was any reason to turn on her after hanging out and spending all that spooky time together. And You lose one match. You lose one little match, and Rosemary got scared. She says, I'm going to spear you in the stomach back to Bel Air or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, what'd you think of this match?
Man, to be fair, I wasn't all that much interested in it because they should have never split the team. They should have put the belts on them. That like as soon as they did make that decision not to do that, it just killed any interest I had in them.
Yeah, it's too bad. Well, I mean, of course, they tried in this match, and I didn't really, I think I was multitasking while this match was going on, unfortunately, but from what I could feel of the match, because you see, I have a wrestling sixth sense where I can feel a match. I don't have to watch it or even listen to it really, but I can, as long as it's on in the room with me, I can feel it. And I can then be pulled in by its gravitational force if they're doing good stuff, and I'll start watching it. And if they don't, then it'll keep me away. So I kind of like were glancing at it, and I didn't really see anything stupid. Because normally when you say it's a no DQ, which feels like every other match these days, um, they're just trying to do a bunch of crazy stuff and take bumps that are just going to end their career, but certainly shorten it, and to no pop and no psychology and no selling and stuff. It seemed like while they went around the ring and did some stuff outside and all this stuff, they didn't pull like a door out from under the ring or anything, or a bag of objects that hurt to land on or anything really. Like, not really, unless I'm mistaken. But I don't recall seeing anything super crazy. They had an aggressive, relatively safe, but somewhat chaotic feeling match. And the end came when Rosemary hit the wing clipper with a cane. She like held the cane behind Wendy or whatever, so for extra spinal damage or whatever it is, and laid Dark Wendy down to rest, which she always wants to do with her giant body pillow. Um, but yeah, so good feeling match from what I could sense of it. Uh, Sadly, Dark Wendy, doesn't pick up the win, but that's just how it's gonna go. I mean, they did Rosemary dirty in NXT, and I don't think it's doing Wendy dirty per se, but it's just returning the favor. So, um, so that was fine. And then for some reason, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I did not like about this match was a spot where Wendy just walloped the shit out of Rosemary with the pillow, and it didn't lead to win. Kind of killed. I thought it killed the gimmick a little bit of the pillow.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Well, I mean, perhaps she just didn't stuff the pillow with the proper objects beforehand like she usually does, or maybe Rosemary knew about it. Well scouted. She went and pulled the objects out of the pillow and it made it less effective. Now you're just getting whopped with a comfortable pillow.
This feels kind of nice, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it can still suck, like you might get hit in the eye with a corner or something, but generally not as good when there's no brick in it or whatever. Liz says, you can tell they're both so good they didn't need to do anything seriously stupid like the NXT girls did for Halloween Havoc. Yeah. Well, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about, okay, I can imagine why we had one of these, but we're getting a vault match from back in June 15th of this year. It's Mustafa Ali and Campaign Singh versus Mike Santana and Joe Hendry. And you may be thinking, well, that's a hell of a random ass match to pull out, until you see what happens here at the end, where Santana and Hendry go over, and then Frankie Kazarian runs in the ring, which at this time would have been like for no reason that I can recall, and just starts attacking. And then someone lets a Rhino loose. And the Rhino rampages into the ring and gores Frankie and all this other stuff. So I think they're pulling this out of the vault because, Kaz is kind of in this triangle with Hendry and Ziggler, and now Santana. He's already made his declaration, like, well, I'm here for the gold. So even though he hasn't necessarily been inserted quite yet, as far as like he's got a match coming up for the title, but we know that that's what he wants. So this, I guess they pulled it out because it sort of involves those guys.
And he's also on the upward push.
Mm-hmm. And then we also get, now are these guys on the upward push? Because we get Burt Macklin promo next. And I just remembered that he was the champion once, and I shuddered a little. But yeah, he cuts a promo. He, yada yada yada, story, plotty predicated. As again, shout out to Ben Hameen. It's far from over. It's far from over for him and between him and Josh Alexander and his Northern Armory guys. So, any thoughts on Bert's promo here?
Felt more like just, didn't really advance anything, just more or less just saying, hey, this thing's still going on.
Don't forget about my feud. Next is the Rascals. And they kind of climb up this wall of storage chairs, folding chairs, and they end up in that room. You know the one. I got nothing. Whatever you want.
Pass it to the left.
Yeah. Do you remember anything they were talking about?
A lot
Empty
of
chair, I think they mentioned at some point.
Yeah, they mentioned Wesley a little bit, and then they kind of like, and then they kind of went back into the old gimmick, like, hey, okay, we're leaving him in the past.
With the laugh track.
Yeah.
Laugh track. Okay. All right, well, fans of that kind of stuff, there it is. It's That 70s Show is back, baby.
Get me a hologram of Mike Awesome, pal.
Oh. He's like a Star Wars, like a Jedi Force ghost. It's like with a bus. We get a digital exclusive, I guess, of Santino and Dreamer and the referees getting in between the Ziggler brothers and Joe Hendry after, that match that they had, the tag team match, playa.
Holla holla.
Yep. And then it's mostly like Ryan accusing Joe Hendry of doing, whatever he did on purpose, so anyway, yeah, so Santino's like, he ends up in this scuffle, he ends up making a match between Joe Hendry and Ryan Ziggler. And then Joe Hendry's music hits and he comes out and he cuts off his entrance and stops at the top, and he proceeds to give us his newest music video. It's called the Ryan Nemeth Story. And I will now recite the Ryan Nemeth story. I won't necessarily sing it the way he did, but I will recite the entirety of it right now because I wrote it down. He's Nick Nemeth's brother. The end. Sorry, but Joe Hendry's right. Damn it, he's right. Yeah, so now imagine sitting yourself, down and be like, okay, here comes the new Joe Hendry song, and he just sings those two lines and then it's over. It was great. But he says there'll be a new chapter next week to the story when he kicks his ass in the match that they're supposed to have. So look forward to Hendry versus Lil Zig next week.
Lil Zig, is he on the Diddy tapes, pal?
Perhaps. Perhaps. Yeah. So that was that. Anything to add?
Nerf guy, basically like Liz said, short, sweet, and to the point.
All right. Um. Well, Santana is flying coach. Because he runs into them in the hallway, and let's see, AJ is really trying to sell, kind of the way he got Swan in, and the way he's tried to get other people, like, hey man, why why are you over here doing this? You could be over here with us doing this, or his general pitch. And yeah, so of course Santana's not going to do it, and he walks away, and then he's like, all right, KC, you're going to take care of that. He's like, wait, what? What? So
no, I like this new first class. Like Casey Navarro is like he's fitting in very well, and him and AJ are developing a really nice chemistry together, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, in most ways that you can be, AJ Francis is a ridiculous human. Like, I mean, just name a way a human could be ridiculous, and he is. He's ridiculously big. He's ridiculous looking. He dresses ridiculously. As far as like pro wrestling goes, I don't know what he dresses like. I'm sure he can dress as nice as he wants. He's a Cheez-It champion. He talks ridiculously, like when he's in wrestling promo mode. He's had a ridiculously interesting path to wrestling. He's been ridiculously interesting in wrestling. The things he's done in a wrestling ring have been ridiculous in the literal sense, as which he's been ridiculed. So all these things, but since he's been in TNA, I feel like he fits right in and is just as good a part of the show as most people are, and kind of proving that, like, well, yeah, maybe I didn't have the, maybe some unfortunate things happened. I didn't have the greatest runs before this, but I could do, I could be entertaining. I can be a valuable part of the television program. So I as much as I have sort of laughed at AJ in the past, he's turned that into just being a good heel character here. So I like it. See, I can say nice things about people I don't have a personal vested interest or bias towards.
You
Do you
see
kind
what
of
he
agree he's been the same, like a good addition to TNA to watch TV?
agreed 100%. I think like he's an example of uh like WWE could use TNA as kind of almost like a testing ground for like, hey, something's not working for you. Go to TNA, spread your wings, do something creatively there. If it catches on, it gets over. All right, we'll look at you again.
Yep. The concierge intros Heather by Elegance. And then we get Heather versus Jody Threat. Thoughts?
It was a match, and it happened.
I couldn't agree more.
I think the finish was wrong.
The finish was, well, I mean, Jody goes over with a pop shove it, but are you talking specifically about who should have gone over or the booking of the finish itself?
Both.
All right. Would you like to explain?
That'll be on the punching up.
Okay. Well, can you explain what they did do?
I forgot exactly what it was, but I remember it was like oh, it was a kid. Yeah, Heather went for a crossbody, got caught, pop shove it, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. And everybody was out there. Like Ash and the concierge were on the one side, Danny Luna's on the other side. So, there's some shenanigans, but I don't remember them playing directly into the finish. Right?
Correct.
All right. Well, looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event. It is the surprisingly booked match of Moose challenging Speedball Mike Bailey for the X Division Championship. I don't have a lot of notes on this because I was just kind of sitting and watching it and trying to enjoy it. So, I mean, I made some mental notes, but not really anything to greatly elaborate on. What would you say about this particular contest in terms of the match itself, the booking, the finish, the potential, anything you want?
I thought the structure, setup, and build and how everything was put together was good. Just some of the usual things that we usually criticize on here, like no selling or selective selling, such as Bailey getting his shins busted and landing on stuff, and then all of a sudden he's springboarding and bouncing off the ropes.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to be able to stop him from doing that. But continue.
But I mean, I like the finish.
Okay.
At least it was done in a way where it didn't really bury his finish. It's more just like, I got to hit it again just to be sure.
Several times. I lost count, but I feel like it was like 4 or 5 spears.
It was 4 total.
4 total? Okay.
Yeah,
one was kicked out of, right?
One was kicked out of. Second one, he rolled out of the ring on. And I think the third was out of a count, and then the fourth was just to make sure it was finished.
Right. And Moose kicked out of the ultimate weapon,
which we've never.
I
don't think we've seen that yet.
I swear we saw it in at least one match. It's just probably why he went to that flamingo driver or whatever he calls that as like a super finish. But he wasn't going to be putting that on Moose, I don't think.
No.
And he wasn't even going to attempt it. So, basically that. But yes, I mean, so, the match overall, I understand the psychology of why it was laid out the way it was. And I mean, do you want to you see where I'm going with this, right? Like, do you want to just explain it real quick?
That's one of my biggest weaknesses. Like, I can envision stuff in my head and put it together in my head, but when it comes to actually communicating and getting out, I suck at it.
Well, simply, it's simpler. I just mean in the sense of like, Moose was going over, so Mike took most of the match. That's basically that's a general wrestling psychology template. If you just want to be like, well, I'm getting all my shit in and stuff, and I'm losing. And that's how it is, Like, if I'm gonna lose, I'm getting my shit in. For better or worse, that is a strategy. So, but
I mean, it does kind of make sense if you're a little guy and you're facing Moose, you're throwing everything in the kitchen sink to try to take him out.
Right. Now, could you have done it better than they did in this match? Yes. Could you have? Did they do some things in this match that I didn't like? Yes. I blame Mike Bailey. Well, I blame them both. I blame Mike Bailey in the sense that I'm sure that he or maybe another producer was pitching it and they shouldn't have. And if Moose was also pitching it, he shouldn't have. And that's why I would blame him, and I would blame him for, going along with it because it takes two. So, but there was like a lot of, this is one of the things I don't necessarily find enjoyable about mismatches is it's one thing to do something impressive. Like I like in a match where you have a smaller guy against a bigger guy. I like when the small guy could show a feat of strength by lifting up, like whether it's just a body slam, like, oh, look, he picked him up and slammed him. Like I like going for it, working for it, getting it. There's a story, you can tell. Those are good. And if you're picking up a guy, anytime you see like, if you see like a big guy getting like German suplexed or whatever, that's a story you could tell. Those things don't bother me as much. In the mismatch matches, I don't like it when things that are impossible happen. Like you're not gonna like somebody. I'm not saying they did it here, but I've seen this in the past as like a Johnny Gargano type thing where he'll be fighting somebody that's 2 or even 3 times his size, and he'll like clothesline them and they'll take a bump. Like that's not happening. I don't care how big you are. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter who you are. Like if JBL gives me a clothesline from hell and I don't take a flat back bump, I'm not gonna take a flat back bump. He can't make me take one with his clothesline. I may fall down, but it's not gonna be that clean looking wrestling bump, like, oh, the force of this clothesline knocked me down. At worst, I will stumble backwards and fall down, and at best, I will stagger backwards and not fall down. Right? It's hard to knock a whole human being down with your arm when they don't want to go down. It just is.
Right, especially they know what you're throwing at them and they base and post for and get ready for it.
Right. It'd be silly. It's actually silly if Moose was to do it to Mike Bailey, but if Mike Bailey were to do it to Moose, it's impossible, basically. So I don't like things like that. And like I said, they didn't do that, but what they did do was something else that I don't like, which is like Mike Bailey went for a lot of like technical pins in the match, and Moose is just so big that you couldn't really get enough momentum on all of it to make it realistic and believable.
Right. Like I like the idea. I like the spot. I like the idea of the spot. It's just, yeah, like you said, Moose is not believable to do with Mike Bailey and Moose.
Right. If you could take, like, if when you see guys like well, even like a Dolph Ziggler, right? Like he's an accomplished amateur wrestler, but he's not just going to be able to necessarily pick Moose up and throw him around. Now he could take him down, right? And he could embarrass him on the mat, and ride him a little bit. But it's not, you're not going to just have him outpower, because if you could just, if Mike Bailey is able to just roll up Moose anytime he wants, then shouldn't he just be able to just throw him around like he's nothing? I mean, if he's that strong. So I don't like those type of things. He did it too much. I think you could do a couple of them. Like if Moose is off balance for something, like if Moose misses something and Bailey like, does a schoolboy or a cool flipping pin or something like that, because he's like, like if he goes for a spear in the corner and like staggers out and loses his balance and Mike Bailey pulls him or whatever. But there was a lot of times where Moose is just at a full stand and Mike Bailey will jump up and do like some victory roll thing, and Moose will just take this awkward bump. It's awkward because he's so big, and it's awkward because he's so tall. So it doesn't look like he could believably be pulled down for a pin like this, right? So just things like that. Do less of that is what I would say. You could go for him and have Moose stop you. You could go for the old schoolboy. He doesn't go down. Moose goes to step on you. You move. You hit him with a kick. You could still stay up and on top. Just go for things and don't succeed every time.
A million ways to skin the cat, as long as you're trying to accomplish the same goal.
Right. Or as I like to say, a million ways to skin the cat as long as you do what I want. No, but But yeah, so that, and there was like a couple of moves in this match that was pretty dangerous. Um, the code red ended up being dangerous because of how they got into it. I feel like Moose almost domed himself on it, and that could be because of the size difference. It could be because of just maybe they went too early and didn't, because they were trying to go for a quick, like, oh look, surprise, surprise, motherfucker, and then they don't set up properly, so the bump looks awkward. Could have been that, or um, could have just been the size. Like Moose thought he could get his shoulders down, but end up almost hitting his head and neck. Looked uncomfortable, but he seemed to be okay.
Yeah, good thing he's got those muscles there.
Right. Yeah, his traps will help him survive. They also did the poison rana off the top, like, and it looked like I don't know how you just don't get hurt on that. I can understand how you could take the poison rana from the ground, but coming from up an elevated position and falling down on your neck and shoulders, like, I don't see how you don't fuck yourself up with that.
I don't know why guys are even doing that move. Like, that's just way too high of a margin of error for something to go wrong.
Yeah, and for what? It's not the finish, so whatever. But they did it. They did a couple of those things, and that's just I mean, look, sadly, I say sadly because I think we're used to it by now. That's just what you get in a Mike Bailey match. You're going to see something where you're like, fuck, that's dangerous. And the art of pro wrestling is to make something look dangerous and it not be. And these things look dangerous and they are. And if somebody doesn't get hurt, that's like a happy coincidence. It's like, oh, good, you didn't get hurt. I was hoping you wouldn't, but I was trying to. Like, some of this shit, there's just no way to take. But even for a Mike Bailey match, there wasn't that much of that. It was more like C- level psychology that could have been a B or an A than Mike Bailey's going to do a bunch of bumps to you that hurt. So overall, I liked it. I thought they worked well together when they weren't doing those things that we already talked about. It was an exciting match. The crowd was into it. Speaking of crowd was into it, I didn't mention this, but in the previous match when Jody Threat won, I heard some guy in the crowd loudly booing. He was not happy that that the babyface won the match. So I just thought that was funny because you could isolate that on the audio and hear this guy boo. Like, he was furious. But yeah. So yeah, it's a dangerous Bailey match, but you know what? Doesn't matter. All's well that ends well, because after the 27 spears, Moose finally wins. And no help, no cheating. He didn't even cheat. Like, no secret low blow. Why? We'll find out in a second. No, no eye rake, no weapon, no hidden weapon. Just, he took an ultimate weapon, but no hidden weapon for Moose. Moose said, I could take this title from you anytime I want. And he didn't need anybody to run to ringside. He didn't need any outside objects or anything. He just took all of Mike Bailey's best shots and beat him anyway. And it's okay for a heel to do that sometimes, especially in a situation like this. And in that sense, that's what I love about Moose, because I feel like he knows that stuff. I feel like he's really smart about that stuff. I feel like if this finish was going to go any other way, he wouldn't necessarily say, I could take that title from you anytime I want to. He probably knew going in what it was going to be. And he needs credibility, because I don't think TNA treats him the best all the time. It's not as well as they should, right? So you got to get your credibility somehow. Anyway, your new X Division champion, Moose. Now, before we talk about the implications of that, which we'll end the show on after, obviously we'll end after punching up, but we'll end the review. So Trent Seven comes out and makes the big show of like, you know, hey, hey buddy, you did your best. I love you, man. Hug. Hey, let's have a round of applause for Mike Bailey. Hey, let's have a speedball chant. Hey, let's raise his hand. Hey, hey, hey. Ball shot. When it's going on way too long, you telegraph it a bit, and that's the thing that sucks. Also, it doesn't make any sense, but whatever. Um, he gives him the ball shot. Mike Bailey sells this ball shot just being hit, like, because the hand stays right there on the balls, and Mike Bailey sells it longer than anything else he ever has. And then he gives him the lariat. He chokes him with a towel. He shit cans him over the top rope. He rips his shirt off and throws it on him. The mustache or Speedball Mountain shirt, and just rips it off. Probably, I didn't really want to see that, but maybe he could have worn another shirt underneath or something, because I didn't have to see shirtless Trent Seven. But whatever, he did it, and that's how we go off the air with Trent Seven, evil, and Mike Bailey in a heap outside with a torn up shirt that used to be touching Trent Seven's body on him, which is probably the worst of all. Worse than losing the title, worse than your friend turning on you. He touched you. Gross. He kissed him a few times too. Several kisses to Mike Bailey. Before and during the beating.
Okay, Mike, we want you to show us on the doll where Trent Seven touched you.
Yeah. Yep. Revamp with that was awkward chant. So yeah, what do you think about this turn? What do you have to say about it? I know what you'll have to say, something about punching up, but I mean, for this one, what's your commentary?
Yeah, it's kind of flat. There was really, I didn't really feel anything for it. They didn't really do anything to make me care.
Yeah, it's just another 180, right, by a guy.
Yeah, like as soon as he came out, I'm like, he's turning on him.
Yeah, which like unfortunately, I already knew the result and this turn before I watched it. So, but even if I didn't know about this turn, yes, exactly what you said. The fact that they can't shoot a turn without telegraphing it. Nobody knows how. You always feel like, oh boy, here it comes. And maybe they want you to feel that. But I think they still think that because it's coming out of nowhere, technically, like no real reason for it, they like, oh, people will be shocked. I don't think, are people shocked by wrestling turns anymore? Maybe kids, because they just see like a wrestler they like getting attacked by their friend, and they don't understand. So maybe a kid is sad, but like any adults really, like, I don't know if this works anymore the way it maybe used to. If you think of like one of the more famous turns, like the Mega Powers exploding type thing, I'll use that as an example that most people would probably know. They were together for almost a good year, and when the inciting incident happened, there was some little bits of stuff leading up to that, but
like you can see Macho getting increasingly paranoid and insecure.
Right, but not in the overselling overt way. Nothing like what Woods and Kingston are doing on Mondays, but like, just a little bit here and there. But then when it comes down to it, it came to Elizabeth being the reason. Like he's accusing Hogan and Elizabeth. So there's a new, and not our Elizabeth, even though she is the first lady of HG, but just saying, like, um, that thing where Liz getting hurt and causing Savage to see red is a reason to turn on Hulk Hogan. Like, I was never that much of your friend anyway. Fuck you. You know, like, that's something that actually makes sense. So, this was just like, well, we were a tag team. Well, we
And now
lost
we're
our
not.
title match. And now I'm going to hit you in the balls. Like, okay. Yep. I'm gonna completely change my personality just because they never do breakups right. I don't know if breakups have ever been done right. But
Breaking up's hard to do, pal.
yeah, it is. If you spend zero time thinking about it, it's hard to do. If you spend a little bit of time thinking about it, yeah, you'll find it was never that hard after all. But there are different ways you could do it. Um so yes, of all the great breakups like the Rockers and the Mega Powers and other things, this will definitely not go down as one of them. But uh but yeah, so that was that. Now, who cares about those guys? Moose is the X Division champion. That's what we really need to talk about. And we'll end on this as far as the review goes. But so Moose is X Division champion. Historically, TNA has a thing called Option C, right? However, on a social media post on Twitter or X Twitter, Moose said that he's not interested in Option C. He is interested in making the X Division Championship the championship of TNA instead.
I can
Okay.
dig that. I can
Yeah.
definitely dig
Now,
that story.
now I'm interested. Uh, because then you could have a potential Rob Van Dam situation, which, if you remember, Rob Van
Dude,
Dam was the
as
television
soon
champion
as
for
soon
like a
as you said
million
that, that's the
years.
first thing that came to mind is RVD.
Right. And I don't even, whoever else was the champion around those times, like whatever, Taz, sure. Mike Awesome, all right. You know, like, no one cares. We're here to see Rob Van Dam. He's the main event. He's the whole fucking show. His entrance is longer than the ECW championship match. Those type of things. You could potentially do that. And you could get to the point where whoever's the champion, whether that's, Ziggles or anybody else, can be like, you know what? I want to challenge you for this X Division Championship. And then he takes it off of them.
The TNA World title ends up becoming the Option C.
Right. And he's like, I'm not going to, you want to, put your money where your mouth is. And then you do a title for title match and Moose takes that title. Obviously, if I'm booking it and you're booking it, that's probably what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we just turn Moose into Ultimo Dragon. Why stop there? Until if he wins everything that TNA has and then goes to NXT and gets something, you know what? Why not get this North American Championship while I'm at it?
TNA actually did do that angle with Bobby Lashley back in like a decade ago.
Right. But we can even do it better than that and make people forget about that. So it's not just about saying, okay, he's going to beat all the guys that have belts and take their belts. It's about everything surrounding it and how it comes about that makes it interesting. Because you're going to constantly feel like, well, something's got to give. They can't just keep putting Moose over, Like, he doesn't need this anymore. Like, eventually people are going to be like, oh my God, how many belts can he win? He's going to need a radio flyer wagon to carry all these belts out. And
carry all your belts out of your little red wagon, Brian Christopher.
Yeah. So that's where you take it that one step further and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go win other promotion titles too, and I'm gonna bring those and throw those in the wagon, you know. And then you just do that, and then
Ooh,
you don't end this until um
what if Moose in the system end up becoming so powerful that NXT and TNA team up to have to take him down?
that's an option. That's option D. And then you could even get to the point where he's so tired that he starts relinquishing championships. Like, I don't want this. I took it because I said I could. You know, he said that about the X Division championship, but now we're talking about like some other championship. He's like, you guys
Ooh.
can have this. I don't even want it.
Ooh, what if like he did like an Alexander the Great speech of like, I looked out and and Webfront
Yes.
conquered it all. So now I'm going to
Yes.
spread the spoils of the riches with my generals.
Right. And maybe you could do that. Like, you could be like, here you go, Eddie Edwards. Here's a digital media championship. And then Santino can be like, just like, again, going back to the 80s, you have, Andre the Giant winning the belt and just selling it to Ted DiBiase. And then they end up stripping the belt from him for doing that. So, like, if Moose tries to give away championships, they'll strip it from him, and then that's how you get it off him without beating him and things like that. So much stuff that we've given him right now. So, all you guys that you have assigned to listen to our show, just go ahead and be sure to clearly report this back to them so we can enjoy a prosperous Moose the Great conquering run. But yes, that's my thoughts on it, and there'll be more thoughts, I guess, as time goes on, depending on what they do and how they handle it. But now, for this episode, it's time to punch, 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 punch. Brandon, please punch.
Let's do it, pal. I'll make sure we got our supplies right by us. Kick it off with the recap catch-up packet.
Mm-hmm.
Intro, Pyro, and Ballyhoo go to the announce table, run down the card for tonight, give their thoughts on recent events, open it up with an in-ring. The System of Mike Bailey, Trent Seven, Ace Austin, and Kushida. The System music and entrance. Alicia intro promo. Edwards, Myers, and JDC get some words in. Moose promo on Mike Bailey where he calls him out. Mike Bailey music and entrance. Quick Bailey promo that ends with him saying they can fight right now. 7, Austin and Kushida run into even the odds. Santino music and entrance, and he books 7, Austin and Kushida versus Myers, Edwards, and JDC for later in the show. Go to our first commercial break. Then come back with a digital media exclusive. Same one as on the show with Nick and Ryan Nemeth and Joe Hendry. The announcers say we'll hear from Hendry later in the show. Match number 1, Wendy Chu versus Rosemary. Wendy Chu music and entrance, Rosemary music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show. Package Lei Ying Lee's victory last week and Savannah Evans' return. Go backstage with Gia and Savannah Evans. Same as on the show. Announcers say the producers have received a video message from Chris Bay they want to air. This I actually got this idea from Lab Right during the watch along last night. So we go to a video message from Chris Bay. He thanks the fans for the love and support, gives an update on his status. He wishes Ace, Kushida, and 7 and luck in their match and plugs donation and merch links. You go backstage to the locker room where Ace, Austin, Trent 7, and Kushida are watching Bay's video on the monitor, and they get fired up before they head to the ring. Commercial break number 2. Match number 2, The System versus Ace Austin, Trent 7, and Kushida. The System music and entrance. Ace Austin, Trent 7, Kushida music and entrance. They're all coming out to Aces because, the whole thing rallying behind Bay and yeah. And Babyface is over after Austin pins Myers. Pre-tape, Steve Macklin, same as on the show. We go to the vignette with the Rascals, same as on the show. We go backstage to the System's locker room. The Myers, Edwards, and JDC are arguing. Tasha tells them to knock it off and let the women get it done. And Natasha and Alicia head to the ring. Commercial break number 3. Match number 3, Tasha Steelz and Alicia Edwards versus Jordan Grace and Masa Slamovich. Tasha Steelz and Alicia Edwards music and entrance. Jordan Grace music and entrance. Masha Slamovich music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show. Pre-tape, Santana and First Class, same as on the show. Then we go to our in-ring with Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry music and entrance. Same promo and parody as on the show. Backstage, the Systems locker room. Everyone is arguing with each other over losing their matches. Moose calms everyone down and assures them that after he wins the X Division title, the losses will be forgotten and they'll be partying. Go to our fourth commercial break. Match number 4, Laredo Kid versus Kevin Knight. Laredo Kid music and entrance. Kevin Knight music and entrance. Kevin Knight over clean. And then Crazy Steve comes out to chloroform Kevin Knight and drag him backstage. We go to a DMTV where Sami Callihan does his thing and teases that he is targeting Frankie Kazarian. Match number 5, Heather by Elegance versus Jody Threat. Concierge promo. Heather by Elegance music and entrance. Jody Threat music and entrance. Heather over after Danny botches trying to stop Ash and the concierge from cheating. The announcers say the producers just received a recorded video from Ryan Nemeth. We go to a recorded phone video from Ryan Nemeth where he responds to Joe Hendry's promo and video parody. Then we go backstage to the Systems locker room where they are now on the same page. And again, Moose assures them, bringing gold back to the system. We go backstage to the different locker room. Ace, Seven, and Kushida hype up Bayley. Ace shows Bayley a video that Chris Bay sent him where he's rooting for Bayley. Go to our 5th and final commercial break. New Japan hype video, announce table, run down the card for next week's.
Brandon, you accidentally muted yourself. Did something come unhooked, or is it on the StreamYard? I can't hear you obviously, but looks like there's some technical difficulties at this time. Dang it, Don Stevens. Damn you, Don Stevens. We're not even talking about AEW. Well, this is quite an interesting predicament because I have no idea what else he was going to say. But I also don't know if he's had to restart his. Looks like he's restarting his. This is we're live, pal. So if you're listening on audio, Brandon is restarting. I think his StreamYard or dropping out and dropping back in. But yes. So as we wait.
Okay, I am sorry. I don't know what happened there. Some sort of weird ass crash.
All right.
Okay.
I think the last thing that you were setting up the main event, I think, was the last thing we heard was talking about the hype videos and announcers and.
Yep. So then we're on to the main event. X Division Championship. Mike Bailey defending against Moose. Moose music and entrance. Mike Bailey music and entrance. Condensed version of the match on TV with some changes. Having Bailey spending pretty much most of the match selling and fighting from underneath. Flurries of offense. Keep getting beat down but refuse to give up. Finish would be System running out, but they're cut off and taken out by Ace, Seven, and Kushida. Bailey sets up for the Ultima Weapon, but Seven pushes him off the top rope. Moose hits spear. Moose over.
Oh. Well, I don't know if I like that.
And then beat down on Seven to Bailey to go off the air while the rest of the System beat down Ace and Kushida.
Yeah. So, I see the attempt there where you want to weave the Trent turn into the match itself. But I also feel that we get way too much of that in not only TNA but in wrestling in general. So it was actually refreshing to see Moose get a clean win against a guy that he should have cleanly beat. Otherwise, why are you there? And speaking of are you there, Brandon looks like he has been frozen again. So I will filibuster a little bit. Uh, Possibly some internet provider issues going on right now. It is should be past peak hours, but anyway, yeah, I think that
Okay, I apologize. This thing,
the internet going out or
no, for some reason I can't hold. It's not charging. I have it plugged in. It's sitting plugged in, but it won't charge. Anytime I move it or knock it, like I don't get it.
okay, so the laptop plug-in or the
Yes.
okay. All right. Well, just hold it there for a couple more minutes while we wrap up. Um so basically what I was saying was we see enough of that. We see enough of people like weaving a turn into a finish of a match and all this other stuff on not only TNA but every weekly wrestling program has done a lot. So I was actually when I saw Moose get a clean win, like I actually felt refreshed by seeing a heel get a clean win. It's like when was the last time I ever saw that?
And
And
I did take that into account, but I was also kind of looking at, okay, here's how we've kind of built and structured the show. Heels keep getting, beat, keep getting beat, keep getting beat. And then you have it where it's like, okay, you have the bigger heel beating down on the baby face. And then it looks like he's finally get like when he has that one spot where it's like that one opening where he can do it. That's when his friend stabs him in the back and he loses.
right. So yeah, it's just so if we were co-owners and bookers of a promotion, we'd be arguing about this probably for a long time. So I just think that even the little subtle details, these are the things that I think Moose doesn't get the kind of credit for. Like why did Vet like Moose so much? Like he's just another wrestler, some people might say. But it's like, did you notice when he came out for the title match that he was just in his gear and a t-shirt? Like no robe, no like no special ceremonial. He's basically saying without saying it, like I'm just doing this as like a perfunctory matter of fact. This is just going to happen. It's not, this is beneath me almost to do this.
In a weird way, like when he's like as he's making his entrance, I just kept getting this vibe of he's getting the belt, isn't he?
Right. And he just looks like he could just be walking out for an in-ring, just t-shirt and wrestling gear. So that's not, normally you see Moose in big matches, he's got his robe, like an elaborately made robe and all this stuff. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe he felt lazy that night. I don't know. But psychology wise, I'd like to believe that he's looking at it the same way I'm looking at it, which is like, yeah, there's nothing ceremonial about this. I'm taking this thing that I didn't even want until I just walked in the room, and got in this kid's face or whatever, or laughed at him. So this is how seriously I'm taking it. I'm just wear my t-shirt out. Not even wear a robe out. I'm not even gonna wear the short trunks or nothing. I'm just gonna go out there and beat this guy and take the belt. Oh, it was harder than I thought. Well, still did it. I think that story is just much more. The turn's not going to have any more impact whether as far as those guys' character and what they do going forward, because all they're going to do is have a wrestling match where they hit each other with a bunch of dangerous shit like in every Mike Bailey match and kick out of stuff and no sell it. So that won't matter whether he pushes Mike Bailey off a turnbuckle or whether he waits till the match is over and kisses him a bunch of times. It doesn't matter either way for them. It only would matter for the the overall picture of the system getting heat. But at this point, I think that the in terms of the system, they kind of need something right now. They don't need to get heat. The heat is that your leader just bullied somebody basically. That's
And
the
got
heat.
away with it.
Yeah, got away with it and didn't need any help. And I bet everybody assumed the system would all run out and do something, and they didn't. So that's even more heat in a way, because it's like, man, what you know, it's just, it's something different. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I enjoyed it, and maybe the only reason I enjoyed it as much as I did is because I see so much of the other thing, and I'm tired of it. You're tired of everything. You have your favorite food every night, you'll get tired of it. It is eventually. It's just, but especially if you're, but you'll especially get tired of it if it's not your favorite food. Like if it was never your favorite food, if you had to eat Brussels sprouts every day, and you hated Brussels sprouts, then guess what? You're gonna hate them even more. You're not just gonna suddenly like it because you keep getting fed Brussels sprouts. You're not gonna do a turn on Brussels sprouts. You're just gonna hate them more. So if I keep seeing the same old angles over and over and over and over, knowing that pro wrestling's not going to go anywhere and I'm still going to be watching it till the day I die or whatever, I don't have to watch it that many more times, anything that's a change of pace is welcome at that point. That's just how I feel about it. But that was Punching Up Impact. And no matter what version of alternate universe Impact that you guys prefer, Moose is your X Division champion, so suck on that. And
Who's going to give it to you, pal?
That's right, Moose going to give it to you. So with that, I guess we should get out of here. You guys have been a wonderful audience. And we'd like to take you home with us. We'd love to take you home, but we can't. But we can take the show home, and we'll do that by telling you where you lovely audience can find us outside of the Impact Attack. Brandon?
As always, you can catch me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X at LG Brandon Whoop. I am also on Twitch, twitch.tv/LG Brandon Whoop Whoop, at least every Wednesday after the AEW watch along. And this Tuesday, we got, let's see what else we got on Tuesday. We got HMG After Dark. Not sure what we're doing for that. Thursday, we're doing an HMG After Dark. Friday, of course, a late start for the SmackDown watch along. Saturday, we're going to be doing, is there any pay-per-views going on this week?
Not that I'm aware of, unless I forgot, but it's another one of those things. There should be one every week, so we don't have like 3 in one weekend like we do sometimes.
I know, right? So yeah, if there's no pay-per-view on Saturday or this weekend, we'll be doing HMG After Dark on Saturday, and then Sunday night is the TNA Impact replay watch-along.
Got it. So, let me ask a couple questions. Number one, you had the HMG After Dark thumbnail set up with a question mark on it, and unfortunately, I did not get a chance to see what it ended up being. So what was the After Dark on the question mark night?
We did part 2 of SmackDown from that Friday, and then we watched the clips from that week's Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Head.
Hey, all right. And then you had a Twitch this week, right?
Yes, that one. I don't know what was going on with it. I was having some errors for some reason, so I had to cut that one early.
Okay. Well, what was it going to be that you were playing, or would you start playing?
Man, I don't remember. I know I did Castlevania starting off. I forgot where I went after that.
All right. It's nice. All right. And there we have Revamped throwing in the Full Gear 23rd, Survivor Series the 30th. So there you go. There's your back-to-back weekend. Somewhere in between there, we'll fit in a turkey dinner or something. So as for me, you can find me at Opinion Haver on all your favorite social media platforms. Oh, Turtles in Time.
You can now remember that. Yep, that was it. Yep.
Big Apple, 3 a.m. And
let's kick shell.
So, Opinion Haver on all your favorite social media platforms. Check me out every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern with Big Ray Hernandez for the Next Level Wrestling Review, where we talk about the NXT half of this mega powers like handshake partnership between TNA and NXT. What do we got going on there? We'll just have to tune in and find out. You can also catch me every Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern for Derek with Jimmy T. And so if you like tonight's technical difficulties, you'll love a show with Jimmy T. You never know whether his mic will be peaking or he'll be in another dimension or he'll be in 120p or whatever the case may be. You can count on me though. I'll be there in glorious HD and with a working microphone. So
He'll
please check
be
us out.
there for you.
Check us out, and we'll talk about the entire week of AEW, which is always a good time. And then let's see. Oh, here's a special one. So, every Friday, Rip Rogers has a live Q&A session of which you can participate. You can be there to ask the legendary Rip Rogers a question. And you guys should know by now, I'm a Rip Rogers guy. But what happens when you get Rip Rogers and a Rip Rogers guy together? That's what Wrestling with Rip Rogers will be this week, this Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern at a concrete time. It's my concrete time. And I will be co-hosting the show just like I did this past Friday when we had a blast for 90 minutes, just answering your guys' questions, talking about all kinds of stuff. And man, that was like the fastest. It felt like the fastest show I'd ever done. I couldn't believe how quick it went, and I wish it could have gone on forever. But we gonna take a part 2 this Friday. So if you could join us, that would be great. Please go to the Rip Rogers YouTube channel and like and subscribe and notify yourself so that even if you aren't normally a viewer, perhaps we can do something to draw you in. And I hope to see some of you there asking some questions, of which we definitely got to all of them last time. So check me out there. Check out Stevie Richards Wrestling, the Stevie Richards Show channel. This week he's talking about what is it like doing the job and all these things and who was cool about it, who wasn't. A lot of interesting talk over there. That should just about wrap it up. So for Brandon, I am the vet. Thank you all, and I don't have a sign off line.